support. And let me tell you something, New Yorkers. Never in my life have I had a problem that I did not see an ending to. I don't see an ending to this. I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City. We're getting 10,000 migrants a month. One time we were just getting Venezuela. Now we're getting Ecuador. Now we're getting Russian speaking coming through Mexico. Now we're getting Western Africa. Now we're getting people from all over the globe have made their minds up that they're going to come through the southern part of the border and come into New York City. And everyone is saying it's New York City's problem. Every community in this city is going to be impacted. We had a $12 billion deficit that we're going to have to cut. Every service in this city is going to be impacted.
A few years later,
New York City is facing a serious fiscal crisis. There is a massive fiscal deficit in our city's budget to the tune of at least $12 billion. We did not arrive at this place by accident. This crisis has a name and a chief architect. In the words of the Jackson 5, it's as easy as ABC. This is the Adams budget crisis. In 2025, under
Eric Adams, please punch me in the face. I would love if you punch me in the face. Okay, you can get fucked too.
All right?
Yeah, fuck you.
Those days are over.
Yeah, good. Thank God. Damn. And I
You
can
see
see your
the
ugly
Brooklyn
ass
in me.
face everywhere. Damn.
That's right.
Busted ass arrested too. Damn.
What's up, family? All right, so we got to talk about Zohran. And yeah, I'm talking about that Zohran Mamdani, the so-called communist out here throwing a tantrum, trying to make it seem like he's the victim running in the Victim Olympics in this $12 billion New York City budget crisis. Like, bro, what are you even talking about? Because first of all, let's get something straight. He's acting like he inherited this deficit from Mayor Eric Adams, like he's some helpless janitor just walking into a trash office with his hands in the air like, oh no, look what they left me. Nah, fam, that's not how that works. That's not how any of this works. Because this dude, right, is not the mayor. He doesn't control the city budget. So right off the bat, you see how he's trying to manipulate public perception. Like he's the hero in a movie cleaning up someone else's mess. It's pure spin, classic political marketing. And you got to give him some credit, not for telling the truth though, but for how slick he is with the performance and being so performative. Like this man really made sure cameras were on him while he was out there shoveling snow. And don't take my word for it, check it out. All right, so there you have it, right? Just like he's a regular individual, like he's not the mayor, just out there shoveling snow, acting like he's for the people. But like, bro, you don't get brownie points for doing basic stuff when the cameras are rolling. And that ain't a service, right? That ain't service. That's a photo op. That's clout chasing 101, chasing popularity. It's all staged. And the crazy part is some people actually see it as being realistic and genuine when it's not, because they see the image, not the game behind it. But if you really look at it with common sense, it's obvious he's not out there solving problems. He's out there crafting a narrative. He's trying to look like the underdog public servant while using fear tactics to boost his own popularity. Talking about, I inherited a $12 billion deficit. Like he's trying to turn budget drama into his personal sob story. Like, come on now. And if you really want to break this all down, because this is where Zohran's whole little game starts to fall apart. This man is not just some amateur out here. Like he's a high level con artist. Like we talking the Gavin Newsom level of finesse, over there in California, Governor Gavin Newsom. And honestly, he might even beat Gavin Newsom when it comes to straight up performance politics and being performative. Because this ain't just your regular politician lying. This is someone who knows how to package a whole lie and sell it like it's truth wrapped in concern. So here he comes again, ringing the alarm bell, talking about the New York City is in a financial crisis, the sides of the Great Recession. Like, bro, really? So you mean to tell me the city is in economic ruins now because of Eric Adams? That's the angle. Nah, that's not what's really going on. And once you really pull the curtain back, it's plain as day. Zohran's out here yelling crisis, right? That's what Zohran's yelling. Not because the math changed, but because reality finally hit him. He's finding out the hard way that all this magical political talk, policy talk, all them big promises about giving away free things, basically tugging on the heartstrings of the young who want things handed to them instead of actually working and having an earnest living. So that stuff costs real money. Like, welcome to Earth. Right? You can't just wave a slogan in the air and suddenly housing, healthcare, education, and migrant surge all fund themselves. And that's why he's now begging the state to tax the rich. And not only tax the rich, but tax the rich harder and throw him a financial lifeline because, surprise, the check came due. Now, Eric Adams, whether you like him or not, came back with actual receipts. And his response was straight up cold, no fluff. He said, and I quote, facts have a way of getting in the way when slogans replace math and replaces leadership. Boom. That's the mic drop right there. Right? And I want to show you guys on the screen. And it says, facts, right? I'm going to read it again for the people in the back. Facts have a way of getting in the way when slogans replace math and blame replaces leadership. Number one, bond raters gave my administration one of the strongest credit ratings in New York City history because we govern with discipline, not fantasy economics. Two, I didn't leave a budget hole. I left over $8 billion in reserves. Only someone who can't read a balance sheet would call that a crisis. Number three, every budget passed under my administration was approved by the city council, including Mayor Mamdani's city council comrades. And thank God I was there because their reflex has always been to spend first and ask questions never. Four, we dragged this city out of COVID and absorbed a $9 billion migrant crisis without layoffs, raising taxes, torching our credit, or bankrupting working New Yorkers. And here's the part socialists hate saying out loud. Free is a lie. Every so-called free program comes with a price tag and someone always pays for it, right? And when you look at this and what former mayor, New York Mayor Eric Adams has said, he didn't leave a budget hole, right? He basically laid out that under his administration, New York had one of the strongest credit ratings in the city history because they didn't play fantasy economics like Zohran and his crew is beginning to do. Adams said he didn't leave a budget hole. He left $8 billion in reserves. You know what that means? That means there was a cushion. That there was money set aside. So for Zohran to come in and cry broke like someone stole his lunch money, either he doesn't know how to read a balance sheet or he's hoping you don't know how to. That's the finesse. That's the scam right there. Every budget Adams has passed was voted on and approved by the same city council Zohran rolls with. So if there's a mess, it ain't just Adams, it's the whole squad. Am I getting somewhere? Well, follow me. But here's where it gets even deeper, right? Because when Adam pointed out the migrant crisis, the very same one he warned would be a financial tsunami for the city. And now guess what? That $12 billion number Zohran is screaming about, That's literally the same number Adams predicted years ago. What a coincidence, right? So when you look at this, right? This was another post on X from former New York Mayor Eric Adams. He says, in case anyone was wondering, this was the real motive behind today's press conference. Mayor Mamdani promised a laundry list of free giveaways to buy votes with no plan to pay for them. Now that the math doesn't work, instead of owning the fact that he misled New Yorkers, he's blaming me. Let's be clear. I left him over $8 billion in reserves. This is the same Mamdani who spent years attacking me for not spending enough during the migrant crisis. And the only reason those reserves exist is because I ignored him and his socialist comrades who demanded we blow billions more with no guardrails. Free isn't free. It's just a bill someone else has to pay. Right? So, like I said, that $12 billion Zohran is screaming about, that's literally the same number Adams predicted years ago. He predicted it, as I showed you guys in the first clip. So now that it's hitting the fan, Zohran is like, whoa, where did this come from? Like, bruh, y'all were told by former Mayor Eric Adams over and over, but back then. And Zohran was dragging Adams for not spending more during the crisis. Check this out.
Eric Adams, New York City, betraying the promise of this city. A mayor who sees a migrant crisis and thinks that the answer is tent cities. Tent cities that are built by the same contractor that Donald Trump hired to build the wall. Tent cities that migrants are saying remind them exactly of the same sites that we lambast when we see them in Texas. So we are here to say it is unacceptable in Texas, it is unacceptable in New York, and it is unacceptable in any place where there is a conscience. To this mayor, let us be clear, there are real solutions to this crisis. Because if we went by what you wanted to do, this kind of rain could be flooding your answer to it.
Yes!
What we need instead is to eliminate the 90-day waiting period. To open up city FEPs to our undocumented brothers and sisters and family beyond the binary.
Well, there you have it, folks. There you have it. Zohran, he was pushing for even more spending, right? And now that the tab came due, he's crying wolf and pointing fingers. But this was the same man, Mamdani, who actually wanted former Mayor Eric Adams before Zohran Mamdani became mayor to spend more in the migrant crisis, spend more money. And if you look at it, that's what these socialists never want to admit. Free is a lie. Every so-called free program does come with a price tag. I agree with Mayor Eric Adams. Now, do I rock with Mayor Eric Adams fully? No, he's a chameleon. He blends in. Sometimes he speaks with common sense, conservative talk, and sometimes he goes back to his Democrat liberal ways. But as far as this, if you ain't paying it directly, someone else is, the taxpayer. I got to agree with former Mayor Eric Adams. The working class, future generations, somebody always pays. And Adam lays it out. Zohran made promises with no payment plan. Now, remember, he said free buses. There's no free buses, but he is imposing, blaming Mayor Eric Adams, who left him with a reserve of $8 billion. Oh, I have to increase a tax hike by 2%. You were the same man saying free everything. So how do we go for taxing the working class more and taxing the rich when the rich can just leave and those who have to stay and succumb to their, their situation because they can't just up and leave like the wealthy can because they don't have that much resources, obviously, to the working class. You're not really helping the working class then. You went against your whole campaign of free this and free that and help and freezing rent. What happened to freezing rent? Oh, wait, that got blocked by a judge. Don't take my word for it, family. I'll show you. So as you guys can see on the screen, it says just in, and this is January 11th, 2026. Federal judge blocks New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani's attempt to slow sale of thousands of rent-stabilized apartments. And if you really want to break this down, simply what it's saying is one of the biggest promises behind, as we know, the whole rent freeze the rent movement from Zohran Mamdani in his campaign, it basically ran into a straight legal and economic wall. And I say that, and I'm using this as an example, and this is just his first gist of understanding the reality of things and stop living in the delusional fantasy world. The idea was that by stepping in and trying to block the sale of thousands of rent stabilized apartments, tenants would somehow be protected and the housing would be saved, right? But a federal judge said, nah, that's not how this works, and allowed the sale to go through anyway. And what that shows is that you can't just declare a rent freeze or try to strong arm the market and expect the courts and property laws to magically bend around it. And instead of creating stability, the situation ends up with the same buildings just changing hands between big landlord companies while the tenants are still stuck dealing with the conditions, right? So from a critical political standpoint or a commentary angle, this looks less like a real solution to fixing housing and more like a symbolic move that sounds good in its speech, but falls apart when tested in reality. It's an example of how simply freezing rents or blocking sales doesn't automatically repair buildings, pay off fines, or improve living conditions. It just creates legal fights and uncertainty while the underlying problems stay the same. And that's what this shows you. And any real logical person, if you really look at it, is the housing crisis isn't happening because rents aren't frozen. It's happening because there aren't enough good, affordable homes, and the rules make it hard and expensive to build and maintain them. When you cap what landlords can charge, but keep piling on taxes, fines, and regulations, you discourage investment. Good landlords sell, bad landlords hang on, and milk what's left, right? And buildings decay. And if you look at it, what would make it easier and cheaper to build, renovate housing, that means cutting the red tape on new construction, speeding up permits, easing zoning so more multifamily housing can be built, and offering targeted tax incentives for owners who actually upgrade and maintain rent stabilized buildings. Pair that with strict, fast enforcement against truly negligent landlords so slumlords lose their properties to responsible operators instead of just paying fines and continuing business as usual. So instead of the blanket rent freezes, you protect vulnerable tenants directly through portable housing vouchers or tax credits that follow the renter, not the building. That way, prices can still signal the need for more housing. Developers have a reason to build more units, and low income families still get help affording a place to live. So, in short, increase supply, because if you have limited supply, then that means it's a shortage of housing, which means the housing is going to be so unaffordable for anyone that can't afford it. And most people won't be able to afford it when it comes to the working class people, because when you have such limited supply, it makes what is left and available expensive because it's so limited. But if you increase the supply and demand, which this nutty socialist don't believe in, he believes everybody should have free everything, but don't understand that the simple fact is money don't grow on trees, right? That's what my mama always taught me. So reward maintenance and new construction, punish real neglect, and support tenants directly rather than trying to freeze the entire market. Let the market determine itself. Let people compete, but also be upheld with the standard, right? And you'll have increased supply, which then will bring down the the expensiveness of, or it being expensive when it comes to limited housing, because now people are going to take advantage and charge buku price because they know, oh, it's not a lot of houses on the market. They're going to be desperate and they're going to have to come to me anyway and pay whatever they need to pay, because the reality is it's not a lot of housing. Not to mention that the illegals, right, that Donald Trump and the Trump administration is trying to get rid of, that is exhausting the resources to the American taxpayers and the legal migrants, right? But if you continue to be a sanctuary city and a socialist and all of that, thinking everything is free and giving everything to everybody, you exhaust the resources and tax those who actually pay taxes while you're giving it to illegals who don't have a social security number, don't pay in the system, and disrespectfully shouldn't be in the country in the first place. Now you're raising taxes and think that's going to be the solution while you still let illegals run rampant and benefit off of individuals who work and have an earnest, make an earnest, hard living just to make their life even harder. Zohran, I'm sorry, bro, but you are definitely failing your constituents if you're going to keep going down this route. Now, I know he just got in office. I'm being realistic. I'm being objective. Give it about a year. But with this mindset and mentality that he has, bro, his shit is going to go to shambles. Excuse my language. But it's frustrating, right? Because people suffer. People that actually work hard for what they can and make ends meet and doing everything they can. And just the ignorance. But that's why you got to vote different. You can't vote off of emotion, right? And that's the truth. And I think New Yorkers will learn eventually, unfortunately, the hard way. And when you look at all of this, but it blows my mind because the math don't add up, right? And when you see how this guy, going back to former Mayor Eric Adams, had a point, right? That the math don't add up, but instead of taking accountability, in this case, Zohran, like a grown man, he's blaming the last guy like a broke college kid, blaming their ex for why the rent's late. That's not leadership. That's deflection. That's spin. And again, don't forget, Adams left money behind. $8 billion in reserves. We covered that. Rainy day funds. The only reason those reserves even exist is because he didn't cave to Zohran like he mentioned. And his spin now, think later squad that Zohran is still running with, the same squad that former Mayor Eric Adams was working with. So now that the bills is due, reality is smacked Zohran in the face. And he's running into the Victim Olympics, but you cannot fall for it. And I am not falling for it, and we are not falling for it, family. And if you're getting value from this video, give this video a big thumbs up. It definitely helps the channel, please. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe and join the family. And on that note, I want to get to also this, because getting to the heart of the scam, right? I want you guys, before we get to this rent, I want you guys to see the free childcare that he just proposed. It's mind-blowing to me.
Clearly, these are programs for every single New Yorker. These are not programs that are going to ask the immigration status of any one of the children. All of those children are New Yorkers. They should all be enrolled in pre-K and 3K, no matter where they were born or where they come from. And we are also proud to be a sanctuary city. What a sanctuary city means is that we have policies in place, policies that have existed for years in this city, that deny ICE agents access into schools, hospitals, city properties, or even the properties of city contractors, unless those ICE agents can present a judicial warrant signed by a judge. We know that the vast majority of the time, ICE agents are not presenting that kind of documentation. If they're presenting any documentation, it tends to be an administrative warrant, and oftentimes there isn't any documentation even provided. So we want to make clear the rights of every New Yorker that they have.
And there you have it. So my man is basically saying no matter the status, American citizen should be able to have access to childcare. Also illegal. You could be illegal immigrant. As a sanctuary city, you're still entitled to free healthcare. So now we're getting to the heart of the scam, because you see that clip, you heard that? That was Zohran straight up advocating, right, to dump billions into programs like free childcare for illegal immigrants. And that's what he's really mad about. That's not that there's a budget problem, but that Adams didn't overspend the way he wanted to, Zohran Mamdani. And if you slow that down and really walk through this, because the media and these political actors love to talk fast and confuse people, but I like to slow them down because it's actually real simple. Zohran keep throwing around this $12 billion number like it just fell out the sky. Like he walked into a disaster left by the last guy. But that number ain't some inherited deficit. That number is based on what he wants to spend. But in this article, you see, after you just seen him advocate for free healthcare, even for illegals, it says in this article, ex-Mayor Adams accused of underfunding cash rental assistance for New Yorkers. New York City, former Mayor Eric Adams deliberately underfunded crucial aid programs to keep the New York City budget balanced, according to Mayor Zohran Mamdani. Mamdani accused Adams of under-budgeting programs with known costs like cash and rental assistance. The known cost for cash assistance, for example, is around $1.6 billion, but Adams only budgeted $860 million in 2026. Mamdani said during a briefing on Wednesday, former Mayor Eric Adams made the repeated deliberate choice to under-budget. It was a pattern. Mamdani said he budgeted paltry fractions of what was actually required. These are not optional services. Okay? So, seeing the clip that he wants illegals to have free health care, no matter what the status, your legal status is, being in this country, United States, and then being in the sanctuary city of New York City, which he is the mayor of, this ties in together my point of this number isn't coming out of the thin air or coming out the sky of $12 billion. That number is his dream budget. That's the socialist wish list with all the free goodies he promised, right? And let's be real. That includes a whole bunch of stuff for people who aren't even citizens, like free childcare we just reviewed. And the funny part is, the law literally requires New York City to have a balanced budget. So Adams did what he was legally required to do. He balanced it, whether Zohran likes it or not. That's the rule. You can't just throw numbers around and spend whatever you want. And what did Adams do? He looked at the city's obligations, the revenue, the expenses, and built a budget that made the math work. Was it tight? Yeah. Were some programs underfunded? Probably. But that's reality. You can't fund everything fully when the money ain't there. That's basic economics. But Zohran, nah, he saw the balanced budget and acted like someone just stole Christmas. He had the nerve to get mad that Adams didn't overspend on stuff like cash assistance and rental aid that I just read to you in this article. And especially mad that Adams didn't throw even more money at programs he wants to include for illegal immigrants. Didn't we just see this story when I just showed you this clip of him basically saying no matter your legal status that free healthcare is going to take place in New York? Doesn't that open, and that I said that's the heart of the scam, because didn't we just see that happen in Minneapolis and Minnesota with the Somali community committing fraud with the fake daycares? So what do you think is going to happen with Zohran Mamdani when it comes to these free childcare for everybody, including illegal immigrants who don't even have a social security, can't even pay taxes? That's going to open the door for him to be able to have kickbacks and pocket the money himself to enrich themselves in the name of free childcare. You seeing this story play out again, family? You cannot trust a rat, a slimy, deceitful enemy who makes it out to make it like they have your best interest when they don't. If you really listen and really pay attention and really slow down what they're saying and really ask the questions, right? Do not let them throw at you a free sample to pull on your heartstrings to make like they really care for you, right? See, look, a true friend, I'll give you an example, will fish for themselves and give you fish. But if they're no longer fishing to give you fish, you will starve. That's not a true friend. A true friend will teach you how to fish so you can eat forever. So why is this man so engulfed in not only taxing his constituents, such as the New Yorkers, but then opening the door, no matter the legal status, quote unquote, for free childcare? If he's so busy wanting to make sure that he tackles this so-called deficit, when we know that there's not a deficit because Mayor Eric Adams, former New York Mayor Eric Adams, left him with reserves and a balanced budget. You got to think, family. You get where I'm going with this? Comment down below. Am I tripping? Or you with me? So there we have it, right? And if you look at the numbers, cash assistance, Zohran said the real cost is 1.6 billion, as you guys can see in this article. Adams only budgeted 860 million. Okay, and that's how budgeting works. If you know you can't cover the full cost, you scale it down. That's literally what being responsible looks like. But Zohran doesn't want to scale anything. He wants to do it all. All the free childcare, all the housing, all the cash, all the rental aid. And not just for New Yorkers, but for illegal immigrants too. And he ain't shy about it. He's telling you to your face, straight up. Said illegals would have access to his free child care plan. Imagine that. You're a working class citizen struggling to get help. And now here comes this guy talking about giving limited city resources to people who aren't even supposed to be here, calling it justice. But here's the trick. He takes a balanced budget, doesn't like it, throws it out, draws up his own fantasy budget. That's $12 billion over. And then says, Eric Adams set me up. Nah, you set yourself up. You're just mad that reality doesn't match your utopian promises. And now that the numbers don't work because, they never were supposed to, he runs to the media crying about needing to tax the rich. And that's the backup plan. Not cut spending, not adjust expectations. No. Let's just shake down the wealthy again to cover every wild promise I made to get elected. It's the same playbook every time with these Democrats. Promise the world, ignore the bill, then blame someone else when the math don't add up, kicking the can down the aisle. And the wild part is, folks keep falling for this crap because he sounds smooth. He can charm you. He talks like he's fighting for the little guy. But when you peel back the layers, it's a hustle. It's all performative. It's performance. And yeah, he might even be better at this than Gavin Newsom. He's slick. He's real slick. Slimy. That's why you got to pay attention. Be attentive and awake. And read between the lines. Do your homework. Because people like Zohran, they're not slipping up. They know exactly what they're doing. And the scam only works if you don't. So now let's get to this CNBC interview, right? Where he explains how he plans to tax the rich into oblivion to fund this whole socialist shopping spree. Let's see how deep this rabbit hole really goes.
I am downtown at City Hall this morning, and joining me right now in an exclusive interview is New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani. We've wanted to talk to you for a very long time about so many different issues going on with the city, but I know that you've been working on the budget, and that is one of your first priorities, and so let's go there.
Absolutely.
Because I know that this morning, I believe, you're planning to make some announcements about the budget.
Yes. Well, first, I want to say it's a real pleasure to be on.
Thank you.
And today, you're right. We're going to be sharing the truth with New Yorkers that has sadly been hidden from them for far too long, which is that the prior mayoral administration has left us with a $12 billion fiscal deficit. And this is at a scale that's actually greater than what we saw here in New York City during the Great Recession. And it's something that is attributable to gross fiscal mismanagement, to a refusal to actually budget honestly and be direct with New Yorkers. And that's what we're going to actually do today.
Okay, so the big question is, assuming that that is the hole, how do you fix the hole?
Well, I think the first way is you actually be honest about it. And the reason that that's important is what we saw in the last year from the mayoral administration was there was a recognition about the scale of this crisis, but instead of actually being direct with New Yorkers, it was trying to shift those costs out of view. We had cash assistance, for example, where we were budgeting only for about 50% of its cost on the books, keeping about 50% of its cost off the books. The second thing is about actually making the case for how we fix structural imbalances in this city. We're talking about a $12 billion deficit that is a result of not just the fiscal mismanagement, but also the decades-long effort of then Governor Cuomo to shift costs from the state to the city. So we need to change our relationship to the state. We also need to change our relationship to the wealthiest residents and most profitable corporations here in New York City.
So let's speak.
Exactly. Straight lies, man. Like straight up bold-faced lie. Look you in the eye lies. And that's the dangerous part. It ain't just that Zohran is wrong, it's that he's intentionally misleading people and doing it all with a smile on his damn face, like he's doing you a favor. This dude is dangerous, bro. I don't like him not one bit because he knows exactly what he's doing. See, family, I have this saying, it goes, right? Telling the truth out of season is worse than telling a lie. And what I mean by that is a truth told at the wrong time in the wrong context or without wisdom or knowledge can cause more harm than a lie. Because this man is lying and basically trying to discredit former Mayor Eric Adams and basically put the blame on Mayor Adams when he left him with a cushion, $8 billion of reserve. He just wanted more money set aside, let alone we just covered that he actually wanted former Mayor Eric Adams to spend more in the migrant crisis. So he's not telling the truth at all. And when you really look at the timing, intent, and circumstance, it matters. He just got in office and he's already deflecting. And we just covered that he's not freezing rents. There's no free buses. So if you look at that, he's basically speaking it without speaking it. See, he says things without saying it. And the fact is, he wants $12 billion more. And that won't help his constituents, New Yorkers. And he's trying to make it in regards of that former Mayor Eric Adams hurt New Yorkers. And he's basically having intent to unnecessarily hurt, inflame, and destroy the credibility of former Mayor Adams because his delusional fantasy is not working because he's seeing the reality of things, right? And it's going to damage the trust, the safety, and outcomes, right? On the impact of not only the constituents, New Yorkers, but just the city as a whole. And him saying, I'm just being honest, when honesty is being used as a weapon, not a tool, that's not leadership. That's a lie. That's not, you're cowardly, not taking accountability for what you told and what you said, what you campaigned on, and you realize that you have to find another narrative to basically save face, right? And this basically warns from my saying that telling the truth out of season is worse than telling a lie is because I'm really warning. It's a warning against truth without wisdom, truth and knowledge, not against truth itself, because he's banking on people to not know this. So he's sitting in your face with a straight up bold-faced lie. And that's dangerous, right? There's no confusion here. He knows the city had $8 billion in reserves. That's not theoretical money. That's cash on hand. Real money the city has saved up under Eric Adams. And again, by law, New York City has to operate on a balanced budget. Eric Adams didn't do anything crazy or sinister. He did what was required. He followed the law. He handed Zohran a functioning budget. What Zohran is doing now is a choice. He's the one making a call to say, nah, forget that. What the actual city budget says, I want to spend $12 billion more. Why? Because he wants to fund all these free programs, including a whole bunch of them that are specifically for illegal immigrants. So instead of just owning that and saying, yeah, I want to expand services for undocumented folks, and I'm going to need a lot more money to do it, he flips it and tries to blame former Mayor Eric Adams. Like, oh no, look what Eric Adams made me do. Bro, what? You literally had a balanced budget and you chose to ignore it. You chose to create a $12 billion hole by writing checks the city can't cash. That ain't on Adams. That's on you. Because, but instead of being a man about it, instead of standing on your ideology and saying, yeah, I'm taxing the rich to pay for everything, he wants to point fingers and act like he's cleaning up someone else's mess. It's mind-blowing to me, right? Like, this man really expects people to believe that Adam is responsible for his reckless spending just because Adams didn't pre-fund programs for people who aren't even citizens. It's crazy to me. And the wildest part is people believe this crap. People believe what he's saying. They hear the sound bites. They see the dramatic headlines and they don't look any deeper. And this is the kind of political con thing that works on what Zohran Mamdani is doing. It's not about facts. It's about emotion and performance, man. But when you stop and think about it for 2 seconds, it all falls apart. He got handed a budget with billions in reserve, and now he's crying that it's not enough because he wants to burn through it and spend billions more on promises he never had a plan to pay for. Then he turns around and blames the last guy. He's the victim. It's shameless to me. Straight up just shameless.
To that, because that's something you run on, raising taxes on the wealthy in New York. How much?
I know that's very popular on this program.
When you look, though, at the budget and this hole you're talking about, how much do you look at this hole and say, I can solve this because there are things in here that I can cut, there's zombie programs, other things? And how much do you think it is absolutely necessary for you to raise taxes on the wealthiest?
I think the scale of this crisis is one where we have to pursue all of these things. I have to show that this city government is not just serious about public goods, but also public excellence and public efficiency. And so we have to make sure every dollar that's being spent is actually being spent in a worthwhile way. I'll give you an example. The previous administration launched an AI chatbot that is basically unusable, cost the city close to $500,000, right? That's the kind of money that is going down the drain. At the same time, $12 billion of a fiscal deficit requires the kinds of increased revenue on the top 1% of New Yorkers who make $1 million a year or more, increasing their taxes by 2%. It also means that we look at the relationship between the city and the state, where New York City is the economic engine of the state, of the country. And yet, while we contribute 54.5% of the state's revenue, we only receive 40.5% in return. And if we had actually bridged that gap over the Cuomo years, we'd be talking about receiving an $8 billion additional every single year.
Do you go after that money first, or do you go after the additional tax dollars on the wealthiest New Yorkers first?
I think as a New Yorker, you always have to do all of the above. And so we have to both increase taxes on the wealthiest, we have to also change the relationship with the state, and we have to pursue these kinds of savings and efficiencies here in our city.
Okay, speak to this.
Exactly. This is a scam in broad daylight, right? All that honesty talk he's pushing, that's the first red flag. Anytime a politician starts screaming about how honest they are, that's usually the one not telling the truth. It's someone constantly yelling, I'm real. If you got to say it, you're probably not. And that's Zohran in a nutshell. He's out here telling you he's being real with people, but the minute you actually listen to what he's saying, you realize he's spinning the same tire socialist fantasy, and that's already failed everywhere else. He literally said Eric Adams shifted the cost. Like, bro, you mean he gave you a legally required balanced budget and didn't pre-fund your personal political wish list? That's not shifting costs. That's called reality. That's called governance. What Zohran really means is Adams didn't blow up the budget for him ahead of time to make his job easier. And now that he has to make hard decisions, he wants to pretend like he inherited chaos. Nah, he inherited structure and threw it in the trash. And now what's the plan? Beg the state for more money. That's what he just said. And raise taxes on the rich. Same tire playbook. Always someone else's pockets. Never any accountability. And here's where it gets even crazier. He acts like taxing the rich is just free money on demand. Like there's no consequences. He doesn't mention capital flight at all, right? Like that's not a thing. Like there are mountains of data showing exactly what happens when you punish wealth. Wealth moves. It leaves. It packs up and it dips. We already seen this movie in California, Illinois, New York. Millionaires don't just sit around like sheep waiting to get fleeced, man. They bounce. They go to places where taxes are lower, where crime's not out of control. I mean, look at Elon Musk. He took Tesla, which was in California, and took it to Texas, right? And when you look at all of this, the wealthy go where their businesses are actually respected. That's why red states like Texas, Florida, Tennessee, and the Carolinas are booming. And here's what Zohran conveniently leaves out. Yeah, the raw number of millionaires in New York City might have gone up since 2021, but the share of millionaires in New York City relative to the whole country, that dropped. Before the tax hike, New York had about, 6.5% of the nation's millionaires. After the hike, down to 4.2%. That's not nothing. That's a major signal. It means New York lost its edge. Other states grew their share faster while New York slowed down. And this matters because it's just not about who leaves. It's about also who doesn't come into the state of New York. Growth dies. New money doesn't show up. That's lost opportunity. And it's also resources leaving because the wealth create jobs for the working class people. So that's how you end up with less tax revenue, even though you raise taxes. And that's called the Laffer curve. The Laffer curve. And these socialists swear it's fake, but it's real. It's basic economic behavior. If you punish something, You get less of it. You raise taxes too high, people leave, investment dries up, right? Your pie shrinks, and now your whole math equation falls apart. That's what happened in Chicago. Brandon Johnson thought he could play the same game, jack up taxes on the rich to pay for free stuff. And guess what? The rich left, businesses left, the downtown of Chicago emptied out. And who ended up stuck holding the bag? Not the rich, the working class. Property taxes went up, middle class folks got squeezed, the city lost money, and services got worse. And that's a cycle every single time, and it never fails.
Because one of the biggest issues about taxing the wealthiest New Yorkers is the possibility that they leave New York. So the top 1% of New Yorkers pay somewhere between 40 and 48% of the total revenue for New York City taxes. If a couple hundred of them are mobile and have a private plane and can leave, live in Florida and come here, 150 days a year, that's a problem. What do you do about that?
I think you get back to first the facts, because capital flight is always spoken about whenever we talk about the potential of increasing taxes on the wealthy. What we've seen is that since 2021, when New York State increased taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers, the number of millionaires actually increased in this state. And so it has to be to get back to the facts. The second thing also has to be, we are increasing revenue also to be able to increase quality of service, right? We're sitting here right now in one of the coldest stretches in New York City weather history. One of the reasons why the city could start to get back on its feet was because we had a sanitation department that was staffed by thousands of people, to the extent that we could have 2,500 workers on every 12-hour shift. That's only possible when you're actually investing in public service.
You talk about more millionaires in New York City, and that's true. But at the very tip of the spear, I'm talking maybe even the billionaires, their ability to be mobile seems higher. And so the question is, you look at a state like New Jersey. David Tepper was a hedge fund manager in New Jersey who left the state. All of a sudden, they lost something like $140 million in revenue annually. And so the question is, if you lose a couple of those people, is that in your mind okay? Is that a cost of doing business? Or is that a problem? And what do you do about that?
Well, I think I have to prove that this increased revenue leads to an increased quality of life. And frankly, we also have to get through the kind of fear-mongering that typically takes place in this. The other day, I was speaking to a New Yorker who self-identified themselves as someone who would be taxed by our proposals. They said, I've heard that you're going to tax millionaires. Is that true? I said, yeah, that's what we want to do. We want to increase personal income taxes by 2%. They said, I'm going to leave, like you're saying. I said, I don't think you will. They said, why? I said, because it's a 2% increase. We're talking about $20,000 on an income of $1 million. They said, that's actually much less than I thought it would be. I wouldn't actually be making a financial decision on the basis of that kind of income.
Man, this dude crazy, man. He's not leading with spending cuts. He's not trying to trim the fat or reconstruct your waste. Nah, he's asking for more from the state, more from the rich, more from people who already carry most of the tax burden, which is the rich, the wealthy. And that's the socialist model. Everything's free until the bill shows up. And then suddenly they're looking around like, wait, where did the money go? Bro, the money left because you pushed it out. And the people who are still here, you're about to tax them to death. It's not sustainable. It never was. But this guy doesn't care, because the political game is about looking good in the short term, hand out benefits, get applause, and blame someone else when the economy collapses. And what happens next? Budget deficits get worse because spending never stops ever. And that's the core problem. And they don't know how to stop spending. They refuse to admit that you can't build a stable economy on vibes and handouts. You need discipline, not delusion. And he's talking about like 20K ain't a lot of big money. 20K is actually big to the wealthy because they want to make sure they keep most of their money to obviously turn it more to assets and invest back into their businesses and so forth. So even to millionaires, $20,000 is not pocket change, right? He's acting like $20,000 is just pocket change. Bro, $20,000 is a lot of money. I don't care how rich you are. That's somebody's entire yearly income. That's college tuition. That's a small business monthly overhead. And he's brushing it off like, oh, it's only 2%. But see, that's how they get you. That's how it always starts. They come in small, 2% this year. And you're like, all right, maybe that's manageable. But then next year, they're right back to knocking at the door. Well, we didn't raise money enough. Turns out the deficit is bigger than we thought. We need 2 more percent. It's no different from you giving your friend money and you help them with a situation. They keep asking you to give them more money. Like, no, go get a damn job and take care of your responsibilities. Don't keep coming back to me for handouts. I'll give you an opportunity which can last you a lifetime to help you sustain yourself. But not in this case. He wants you to keep being that friend that keep giving your friend more money out of your hard-earned paycheck while they keep coming to you and you promoting enabling behavior because they're not trying to get it on their own. They want to keep coming to you for a favor and another favor and another favor, right? There's no different between a friend coming to you. You give them money one time and then they ask it again. Once you tell them no, it's like you never get helped them before. So then you keep helping them because you feel bad and you think this is how it's supposed to go. And what happens is that friendship is not even having your best. That person that's your friend, so-called your friend, doesn't even have your best interest. This man doesn't have the best interest of New Yorkers, right? This man will keep coming back, knocking at the door. It's 2% now, but he'll say, oh, we didn't raise enough money. Turns out the deficit is bigger than we thought. We just need a little bit more. Before you know it, 2 becomes 6, 6 become 10, 10 become 20%. And suddenly you're sitting there looking at your paycheck or your business profits like, where the hell my money went? That's the pattern. It's never enough with these people. Never. Because your whole political ideology is built on spending other people's money. The well always runs dry. And then they just look for another well. They treat taxpayers like an ATM machine that doesn't get to say no. And that's the socialist cycle. They tax until it hurts. And when it starts hurting the middle class, they gaslight you with fair share rhetoric. And by the time consequences showing up, when people and businesses start leaving, and when investment dries up, when jobs vanish, and they pretend like it's some big mystery. Nah, the math wasn't right. The math wasn't right there the whole time. It wasn't right. And let's be fair. I'm not going to judge this man on day one. I'm going to be very objective, but I'm just basically giving my political commentary and analysis on what he's saying right now. So even though all the signs are pointing to nonsense, we're going to give it some time. Okay? Give him about a year. Let's see what his policies do. And let's really show what he's really about. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Love you guys. Spread that peace, love, and positivity. Let the love supersede the hate. And as always, we're having a conversation. Love you guys, and thank you for rocking with me truly. Peace.